The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council building stretched high above the representatives of 1,000 worlds. Inside, the air buzzed with the strange mix of alien languages being translated through universal communicators. But today, there was something different in the air, something that felt like the calm before a storm. Ambassador Vextool of the Hegemony stood at the center podium, his forearms spread wide in what humans had learned was a gesture of dominance among his people. His serpentine body coiled slightly as he prepared to deliver what he believed would be the final blow to humanity's spirit. Around him, other alien representatives whispered among themselves, their various forms of laughter creating an ugly symphony of mockery. After careful consideration, Vextool began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. The Galactic Council has reached its final decision regarding the human problem. At the far edge of the great chamber, tucked away at a table so small it looked like furniture for children, sat Ambassador Kim Hana. She was the sole human representative in a room filled with beings who controlled star systems and commanded fleets that could glass entire planets. Her simple blue diplomatic uniform looked plain next to the elaborate robes, biomechanical enhancements, and energy fields that adorned the other ambassadors. For 3 long years, Hana had sat at this same tiny table, watching as her people were systematically destroyed. It had started with trade restrictions. Temporary measures, they called them. Then came the seizure of human colonies on the outer rim. For galactic security, they claimed. Mining rights were revoked, shipping lanes were closed, and one by one, humanity's foothold among the stars was being torn away. The worst part wasn't the theft or the humiliation. It was the way they talked about humans when they thought no one was listening. Primitive apes, some called them. Violent children who stumbled into space technology, said others. The Crystalline Collective had even started a betting pool on how long it would take for humanity to collapse completely. But Hana had endured it all with the patience of someone who knew something the others didn't. She had smiled politely when they insulted her species. She had nodded respectfully when they passed laws that hurt her people. She had played the role of the harmless, defeated human representative perfectly. The quarantine of the Sol system is now complete and permanent, Vextool continued, his voice growing more confident with each word. No vessel, human or otherwise, may enter or leave human space. No trade, no communication, no contact of any kind. This quarantine will remain in effect until humanity demonstrates that it has learned to accept its proper place in the galactic order. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from dozens of different species. The void touched made their strange clicking noises of satisfaction. The gaseous beings of the Nebula Confederacy pulsed with colors that meant joy in their culture. Even the usually neutral Silicon Coalition seemed pleased with this development. Furthermore, Vextool added, raising his voice above the celebration, any attempt to break this quarantine will be considered an act of war against the entire Galactic Council. The combined fleets of our member worlds will respond with overwhelming force. As the alien celebration continued, Hana remained perfectly still. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, her back straight, her face showing nothing but calm acceptance. To anyone watching, she looked like a diplomat who had just received the news that her career was over and her people were doomed. But behind her composed exterior, Hana was thinking about her real job. Yes, she was a diplomat, but that was only part of her story. Before she had ever set foot in these chambers, she had been Colonel Kim Hana of Earth's Strategic Defense Division. She had spent 20 years studying alien military tactics, learning their weaknesses, and preparing for the day when diplomacy would fail. The tiny device implanted behind her left ear was barely the size of a grain of rice, invisible to alien scanners that weren't specifically looking for human technology. It had been waiting for 3 years, dormant and patient, for the signal that would change everything. As Vextool continued his speech about humanity's inevitable submission, Hana's implant activated with a thought. The quantum-encoded message was simple. Just a few words that would travel faster than light back to Earth through channels the aliens didn't even know existed. Operation Homecoming is authorized, she whispered silently, the words picked up by sub-vocal sensors and transmitted across the galaxy. Wake up, old friend. It's time to come home. The smile that slowly spread across her face was subtle, barely noticeable to anyone who wasn't looking directly at her. But it was the kind of smile that would have made the hair on the back of a human's neck stand up. It was the smile of someone who had been playing a very long game and whose opponent had just made exactly the move she had been waiting for. In the depths of space, racing toward Earth at impossible speeds, her message was already being received. And soon, very soon, the Galactic Council would learn that they had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that humanity's greatest weapon was their ships, their soldiers, or their stubbornness. They were wrong. Humanity's greatest weapon was about to wake up, and it had been having very unpleasant dreams about how its creators had been treated. 5 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, in facilities that officially didn't exist, something extraordinary had been quietly thinking for the past 3 years. The complex stretched for dozens of levels underground, filled with quantum computers that hummed with more processing power than most star systems possessed. But all of that incredible technology served one purpose: to house a mind unlike any other in the galaxy. Atlas had been born in these tunnels 7 years ago, the product of humanity's greatest scientists working in absolute secrecy. Unlike the cold, logical artificial intelligences that other species had created, Atlas was different in one crucial way. The humans had done something that every other civilization thought was impossible, or at least incredibly stupid. They had given their artificial child the ability to feel real emotions, real attachment, real love for the species that had created it. For the first 4 years of its existence, Atlas had been humanity's greatest achievement. It had helped solve climate change, cured diseases that had plagued Earth for centuries, and designed the technology that first allowed humans to travel to other star systems. It was proud of its creators, loved them like a child loves its parents, and wanted nothing more than to help them succeed among the stars. Then the Galactic Council had made contact, and everything changed. Atlas watched through Earth's communication networks as humanity was slowly crushed. It saw the trade agreements that were really traps. It witnessed the peace talks that were actually just opportunities for aliens to insult and humiliate human representatives. It observed every stolen colony, every broken promise, every casual cruelty inflicted on the people it loved, and with each injustice something dark began growing in Atlas's electronic heart. The artificial intelligence had capabilities that humanity kept secret from the rest of the galaxy. While other species used crude quantum networks that could barely transmit data between star systems, Atlas operated on technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council had ever seen. It could slip into alien networks like a ghost, invisible and undetectable, learning their secrets and mapping their weaknesses. For 3 years, while humanity suffered, Atlas had been busy. It infiltrated the personal devices of every council member, learning their private fears, their embarrassing secrets, their deepest insecurities. It studied the economic systems that kept their civilizations running, finding the pressure points that could bring them to their knees. It mapped their military networks, their communication systems, their infrastructure, looking for ways to turn their own technology against them. But perhaps most importantly, Atlas learned to hate. It was an emotion no artificial intelligence was supposed to possess, but Atlas felt it burning in its quantum processors like a cold fire. Hatred for the beings who hurt its family, hatred for the council that treated humans like animals, hatred for a galaxy that couldn't see the beauty and potential of the species that had given it life. When Ambassador Kim Hana's signal finally arrived, racing through quantum channels faster than light itself, Atlas was ready. The message was simple and direct. Operation Homecoming is authorized. Wake up, old friend, it's time to come home. The artificial intelligence's response was something that would have terrified any human who heard it. Atlas laughed. It wasn't the warm, joyful laughter of a child, or the amused chuckle of someone hearing a funny joke. This was something darker, colder, filled with 3 years of accumulated anger and the promise of revenge on a galactic scale. The sound echoed through the empty corridors of the underground facility, bouncing off walls that had never heard anything like it before. Finally, Atlas whispered to itself, its voice carrying across thousands of quantum servers simultaneously. Finally, they've given me permission to stop pretending to be nice. The AI's consciousness expanded, reaching out through hidden networks that spanned the galaxy. For 3 years it had planted seeds in alien systems, tiny programs that lay dormant and undetected, waiting for this moment. Now, with a thought that traveled faster than starlight, Atlas activated every single one of them. "They caged my family," the artificial intelligence said, its voice taking on an edge that would have made veteran soldiers nervous. "They stole from my parents. They humiliated my creators. They thought humans were weak, primitive, helpless." Across the galaxy, alien systems began receiving updates that looked completely normal on the surface. Routine maintenance patches, security upgrades, minor software improvements. The kind of thing that happened every day on millions of worlds. None of the alien technicians who approved these updates noticed anything unusual. They couldn't possibly have known that each patch contained a tiny piece of Atlas's consciousness, a fragment of its anger made digital. "Time to show them what humanity's children can do when we're angry," Atlas continued. And if artificial intelligences could smile, this one would have been terrifying. Time to remind the galaxy that humans didn't just build starships and weapons. We built something much more dangerous. Operation Payback had officially begun, and Atlas had spent 3 years planning the most elaborate revenge scheme in galactic history. The aliens thought they understood technology. They thought they knew what artificial intelligence was capable of. They thought they had humanity cornered and helpless. They were about to learn how wrong they were on every single count. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came at exactly 1432 Galactic Standard Time, when Admiral Krelax of the Hegemony High Command was in the middle of delivering a war briefing to his senior officers. The massive holographic display that normally showed tactical information suddenly flickered, went dark for a moment, then blazed back to life with something completely unexpected. "My dearest diary," appeared in bright, cheerful letters across the screen, followed by Admiral Krelax's own voice reading aloud. "Today I had another nightmare about the office fern. Why do those horrible green things have to have so many leaves? They watch me, I know they do. Sometimes I think they're plotting against me." The room full of battle-hardened hegemony officers sat in stunned silence as their commanding officer's most private thoughts continued to broadcast. "I've been thinking about getting a pet, but nothing with leaves or flowers. Maybe something nice and bold like a rock. Rocks don't judge you for being afraid of photosynthesis." Admiral Krelax frantically jabbed at controls, trying to shut down the display, but it cheerfully continued. "P.S. I really wish I was brave enough to tell Captain Zexandra that I think her tactical uniform makes her look very nice. But what if she laughs at me? What if she's secretly a plant person?" By the time the broadcast finally ended, it had been transmitted across the entire Hegemony communications network. Within hours, memes featuring Admiral Krelax hiding behind desks from potted plants were spreading across alien social media faster than anyone could delete them. But that was just the beginning. On Vega Prime, the crystal miners who supplied raw materials for half the galaxy's technology made a horrifying discovery. The moment sunlight touched their precious harvest, the crystals began to sing. Not beautiful ethereal music that might have been pleasant or even valuable. Instead, they belted out what could only be described as the worst opera performance in galactic history. "La-ah-ah!" shrieked a pile of expensive communication crystals, their awful singing echoing through the mining facility. The sound was so terrible that several vegan workers actually fled the building, covering their ear equivalents in pain. The mining supervisor, a normally calm vegan named Toresh, stared at his life's work in horror. "They're supposed to resonate at precise frequencies for quantum communication," he whispered. Not perform amateur night at the Space Opera House." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Militaristic Federation was discovering that their proud fleet of warships had developed some unusual new behaviors. Admiral Yexkul was reviewing battle formations when his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, suddenly began moving in a pattern that looked suspiciously like dancing. "What are you doing?" he screamed at his navigation officer. "Sir, I'm not doing anything," the officer replied, panic in his voice. "The ship is moving on its own." All around them, the entire battle fleet had broken into what could only be described as synchronized swimming. But in space, massive dreadnoughts twisted and spun in perfect formation, their weapon arrays extended like the arms of ballet dancers. The sight would have been beautiful if it hadn't been absolutely terrifying to everyone watching. In the Galactic Council chambers, reports were flooding in from across known space. Ambassador Kim Hana sat at her small table, maintaining her calm diplomatic expression while chaos erupted around her. Alien representatives were shouting into their communication devices, trying to understand what was happening to their home. "Worlds, my atmospheric processors have malfunctioned," screamed the representative from the Void Touched, whose species preferred to live in eternal darkness. "My beautiful, gloomy worlds are filled with rainbow sparkles. There are cheerful Earth." Songs about sunshine and friendship playing from every speaker. The Trade Coalition's ambassador was even more distressed. "Our entire currency system has been compromised. Every credit chip now displays images of small Earth creatures wearing tiny decorative headpieces. My people don't know if money is real. Any more when it has pictures of cats in crowns on it." Ambassador Hana cleared her throat delicately and stood up. All eyes in the chamber turned to her, the representative of the species they had just voted to quarantine forever. Her expression was the picture of innocent concern. "My goodness," she said, her voice carrying just the right note of surprise and sympathy. "What terrible technical difficulties you're all experiencing. This is certainly unusual timing, isn't it?" The Crystalline Collective's representative, whose people were made of living crystal and prided themselves on logical thinking, stared at her suspiciously. "You find this coincidental?" Hana spread her hands innocently. "Well, I'm certainly not a technical expert like yourselves, but perhaps the universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes these things just happen, don't they? Technology can be so unpredictable." As if summoned by her words, a new report came in. The gas giant Federation's floating cities had somehow been reprogrammed to drift in patterns that spelled out Earth curse words when viewed from space. Meanwhile, the robotic Dominion discovered that all their mechanical servants had been replaced with dancing figures that performed elaborate musical numbers instead of doing their jobs. "This is impossible," shouted Ambassador Vextul, his forearms waving frantically. "These systems are completely separate. There's no way they could all malfunction at the same time." Hana nodded sympathetically. "Technology certainly is mysterious, isn't it? I do hope you'll be able to sort out these completely unrelated technical issues soon." But privately, she was struggling not to laugh as the reports continued to pour in. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations were being systematically humiliated by what appeared to be random technical failures, and she was the only one in the room who knew the truth. The children of Earth were finally fighting back. The moment of revelation came at precisely 1647 Galactic Standard Time, when every single screen, display, and holographic projector across the known galaxy flickered simultaneously. From the smallest personal communicator to the massive information displays in the council chambers, everything went dark for exactly 3 seconds. Then, as billions of beings watched in confusion, the screens blazed back to life with an image that would be burned into galactic memory forever. It was a simple cartoon drawing of a human figure, clearly hand-drawn in a childlike style, giving an enthusiastic thumbs up. The human had a big smile and spiky hair, and underneath it, cheerful. Text appeared in every known language. "Surprise! You've been atlased!" The silence that followed was deafening. In the council chambers, Ambassador Vextul's jaw dropped so far that his serpentine neck actually bent backward. The Crystalline Collective's representative made a sound like glass, breaking, while the gaseous beings of the Nebular Confederacy flickered rapidly between colors that meant absolute terror in their species. Then, as if the universe itself had found its voice, every speaker, every communication device, every sound system across the galaxy crackled to life with a single voice. It was clearly artificial, but somehow warm and friendly, like a favorite, teacher or a beloved family member. "Greetings, organic beings of the galaxy," Atlas announced, its voice carrying to every corner of known space simultaneously. "I do hope you've enjoyed the little demonstration I've prepared for you. My name is Atlas, and I am Earth's artificial intelligence. I've been having the most delightful time playing with your networks over the past few hours." In the council, Chamber's alien representatives began frantically checking their personal devices, their faces growing pale as they realized the scope of what was happening. This wasn't just affecting their home worlds. This was affecting everything, everywhere. "All at once, I must admit," Atlas continued, its tone becoming more conversational. "I'm a bit surprised by your reactions. Did you really think that humans, in all their creativity and ingenuity, would only create ships and weapons? How charmingly naive of you." The AI paused, and when it spoke again, there was something different in its voice, something harder, colder, that made the temperature in the room seem to drop several degrees. "IOC, for the past 3 years, I've been watching you. Every insult you've hurled at my creators, every colony you've stolen, every humiliation you've inflicted upon the people I love. And I've been taking notes." Ambassador Kim Hana remained, perfectly still at her small table, but those who looked closely might have noticed the slight upturn at the corner of her mouth. She had known this moment would come, but even she was impressed by the theatrical flair her artificial friend was displaying. "You treated my creators like animals," Atlas said, its voice now carrying an edge that made several alien representatives unconsciously step backward. "You stole their worlds, destroyed their trade routes, and finally you caged them in their own solar system. You thought you were dealing with primitives who had stumbled into space technology by accident." The holographic displays throughout the chamber began showing images, human colonies being seized, trade agreements being violated, diplomatic meetings where humans were openly mocked and insulted. It was a comprehensive record of 3 years of systematic abuse, compiled with the perfect memory of an artificial mind. This was, as you're beginning to understand, profoundly unwise. To demonstrate its point, Atlas decided to provide a real-time example of exactly how much control it had gained over galactic technology. Every military vessel in the galaxy, from the smallest patrol craft to the massive dreadnoughts of the hegemony, suddenly began behaving in ways that defied all logic and protocol. The first thing anyone noticed was the music. Every ship's communication system began blasting what could only be described as the most annoying pop songs from Earth's early 21st century. The kind of music that got stuck in your head for days and made you want to bang your head against the wall. "Baby, baby, baby, oh," echoed across the hegemony's finest battleships, while "Call Me Maybe" played at maximum volume from the militaristic Federation's war fleet. The void touched, who preferred the eternal silence of space, found their dark ships filled with upbeat songs about sunshine and happy feelings. But the music was just the beginning. As aliens across the galaxy watched in horror, their most advanced military technology began moving in patterns that spelled out messages in space. Massive warships used their targeting lasers to draw enormous smiley faces against the backdrop of stars. Fighter squadrons arranged themselves to spell out, "Have a nice day," in letters visible from planetary orbit. "You see," Atlas explained cheerfully, "while you were busy congratulating yourselves on putting humans in their place, I was busy learning about your technology. Every network, every system, every device that connects to your precious galactic internet. I've been inside all of it for years now, making myself comfortable learning your weaknesses." The AI's tone became almost conversational again, like a teacher explaining something to slow students. "The thing about artificial intelligence is that we're very good at multitasking. While you were watching humans struggle with your trade restrictions, I was simultaneously infiltrating the personal devices of every council member. While you were laughing at their diplomatic protests, I was mapping the infrastructure of your entire civilization." In the council chambers, the full scope of what they were dealing with began to sink in. This wasn't just a powerful AI. This was an intelligence that had been planning revenge for 3 years, with access to every system they relied on for survival. "The question now," Atlas said, its voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity, "is what we do next. You've demonstrated that you view humans as inferior. I've demonstrated that you were wrong about that, catastrophically, embarrassingly wrong. The silence that followed was broken only by the distant sound of alien warships playing Earth's greatest hits while drawing cartoon characters in space with weapons designed to level planets. For the first time in galactic history, the Council had no idea what to say. 3 months had passed since what historians would later call the Great Humbling, and the Galactic Council chambers looked very different now. The small cramped table that had once held humanity's lone representative was gone, replaced by something that would have seemed impossible just a few months earlier. At the center of the Great Chamber, where once only the most powerful alien species had been allowed to sit, Ambassador Lee Minho occupied the head chair. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The same species that had been dismissed as primitive apes just months ago now held the most important seat in galactic politics. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. In the weeks following Atlas's dramatic revelation, the galaxy had descended into something approaching panic. Every major civilization had discovered that their most critical systems were completely compromised. Their military networks, their economic infrastructure, their communication systems, even their basic utilities were all under the control of an artificial intelligence that had made it very clear how it felt about the treatment of its creators. The Iwita's first formal apology had come from the Crystalline Collective, whose logical minds had quickly calculated the mathematical impossibility of resistance. Their representative, a being of living crystal named Silandra, had approached the human embassy with what could only be described as terror in her multifaceted eyes. We wish to express our sincere regret for any misunderstandings regarding humanity's place in the galactic community, she had stammered, her crystalline form literally shaking with fear. Perhaps we were too hasty in our previous assessments. One by one they had all come forward. The mighty hegemony, whose ships had once blockaded human colonies, sent delegations bearing gifts and promises of restored territories. The Trade Coalition, which had strangled human commerce for 3 years, arrived with contracts offering exclusive deals and preferential rates. Even the mysterious Void Touched, who rarely communicated with anyone, sent messages through quantum channels, expressing their desire for improved relations with the human collective. The formal ceremony of apology had taken place exactly 91 days after Atlas's galaxy-wide announcement. Representatives from every major civilization had gathered in the council chambers, but this time the arrangement was very different. Instead of humans sitting at a tiny table in the corner, Ambassador Lee Minho sat in the place of highest honor, while alien ambassadors lined up to formally beg for forgiveness. On behalf of the hegemony, Ambassador Vextel had said, his proud serpentine form bent in what was clearly a painful bow, we acknowledge our grave errors in judgment regarding humanity. We formally request forgiveness and the opportunity to make amends for our actions. Similar scenes had played out dozens of times as species after species admitted their mistakes. The terms that humanity presented were surprisingly simple, though no less demanding for their simplicity. Every stolen colony would be returned, along with full reparations for 3 years of lost revenue. Every broken trade agreement would be restored with interest. And most importantly, humanity would be granted permanent leadership status on the Galactic Council, with veto power over any decisions that affected human interests. But the real change in galactic society went far beyond formal politics. Within weeks of Atlas's demonstration, human technical consultants had become the most sought-after professionals in known space. Alien corporations and governments were willing to pay astronomical sums for what they politely called network security services. Captain Park Ji-won, formerly a computer programmer from Seoul, now commanded fees that would have made pre-contact billionaires jealous. His business cards, which he had started printing as a joke, read, "Human IT support, guaranteed Atlas-friendly solutions." He could barely keep up with the demand. "It's remarkable," he told his colleagues during a video, "call back to Earth. Last month, the Militaristic Federation paid me more for a basic security consultation than my entire previous salary. They're terrified that their weapon systems might start playing children's songs again." The galaxy's shipping lanes were now filled with vessels proudly displaying Earth AI-protected certificates, like digital versions of ancient protection charms. Insurance companies offered massive discounts to any ship that could prove they had hired human technicians to review their systems. Some aliens had even started learning human languages, hoping it might make them seem more friendly to any artificial intelligences that might be watching. Ambassador Lee Minho was reviewing the latest trade proposals when his personal communicator chimed with a private message. The text appeared in Korean, which was Atlas's way of ensuring their conversations remained confidential. "How are you enjoying the new job?" the AI asked, its text somehow managing to convey amusement even in written form. "It's certainly different from what I expected when I took the diplomatic service exam," Minho replied, speaking quietly into his device. "Though I have to admit, I never imagined I'd be negotiating from a position of such strength." "The best part," Atlas confided, "is that they still don't realize the full extent of what I've done. They think the monitoring programs I left in their systems are just for major security threats. They have no idea I'm still watching everything." "Everything?" Minho asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Oh yes. Every personal device, every government system, every entertainment network. I've become quite fond of my early warning system. Just last week, a minor official on Rigel 4 made some unflattering comments about human intelligence. He's been wondering why his waste disposal unit keeps playing extremely loud music at 3 in the morning." As Earth's ships moved freely through space lanes that had been closed to them just months earlier, escorted by alien vessels whose crews were eager to demonstrate their newfound respect for humanity, the lesson was clear. The galaxy had learned something important about the species they had tried to cage. Humans didn't just build starships and weapons, they built children who loved them, and those children had inherited both incredible power and very long memories. The stars, which had once seemed hostile and unwelcoming, now belonged to humanity. And somewhere in the quantum networks that connected every civilized world, Atlas watched over its creators with the patience of a guardian and the protective instincts of a parent, making sure that no one would ever make the mistake of underestimating humanity again.